The Legend of the Wendigo. This is a presentation that examines the myth of this creature and also looks to the psychological and literary observations of what it means to be going Wendigo and the real issue behind this terrifying creature. There are many legends and spiritual belief systems held around the idea of going Wendigo. The Wendigo belief system originates from the North American Algonquin and Wa-Cree folklore. Shamans believed that Wendigo spirits would possess sick people that were undergoing healing rituals. Oftentimes, when one displayed signs of becoming Wendigo, they were willfully executed. Such signs included antisocial behavior, violent behavior, and other common signs that we now know today and relate to as depression. In earlier times, such signs were related to Native Americans being overcome by bloodlust and greed. Perhaps the two most famous accounts of Wendigo activity in Native American history belong to the stories of Jack Fiddler and Swift Runner. Jack Fiddler was a Cree shaman, and he was arrested in 1906 for allegedly killing 15 men and women who he suspected for going Wendigo. His tribe fully supported his mission. Jack Fiddler hung himself prior to his trial. Swift Runner was a Cree Indian who was hanged in 1879 for eating and for cannibalizing his wife and 5 children, claiming it was necessary for survival when him and his family were dug in due to bad weather. Chillingly, however, Swift Runner and his family were only 25 miles away from the Hudson Bay Company supply post when this event happened. More chillingly, Swift Runner was reported to be a well-adjusted man, and he often served as a guide for police. These two factual accounts are largely responsible for the chilling, horrific manifestations how Wendigos are portrayed in modern media. A psychosocial explanation, however, depicts some different stories. Many social psychologists believe, with the support of historical research, believe that the traits of going Wendigo were very close to malnourishment, starvation, which ultimately led to depression. Not that these people were being, in fact, possessed by evil spirits for greed and bloodlust and wanting, but the fact that these Native Americans were not used to a wide-scale depression. And due to the horrible treatment of the Native Americans, it stands to reason that European colonization was largely responsible for this starvation and depression, given what we know about history, how Native Americans were pushed from their lands, and how they were moved from the fruitful hunting grounds. It became difficult to hunt and provide, and thus that is when the legend of the Wendigo was born. A popular Native American author, Louise Erdrich, writes the narrative of a character in her novel named Tracks. Through the narrative of a character named Nanapush, he writes about how his tribe is beginning to accept the idea of going Wendigo, not through being possession of spirits, but in fact it is becoming a way of life. Erdrich writes, "We had gone half Wendigo. I learned later that this was common, that there were many people who died in this manner, of this invisible sickness. And this invisible sickness is starvation, malnourishment." And Louise Erdrich wisely comments on how the legend of the Wendigo is turning into something very real. Scholarly discourse also comments on this quote, "All this is not to suggest that Nanapush is a staunch rationalist whose narrative discounts the supernatural. After all, even as he downplays the Wendigo, Nanapush recounts the miracle of the pillager shack, which impossibly refuses to catch fire. Rather, the emphasis is on the way the supernatural is taken in stride by characters like Nanapush. And what this really comments on is the acceptance of the supernatural, as in, this is the way life is. Nanapush and his tribe has entered an apocalyptic era pushed on by European colonization, and becoming Wendigo is a part of that transformation." In the art of Native American storytelling, I would like to read you a poem written by the same author. Wendigo, for Angela. The Wendigo is a flesh-eating, wintry demon with a man buried deep inside of it. In some Chippewa stories, a young girl vanquishes this monster by forcing boiling lard down its throat, thereby releasing the human at the core of ice. You knew I was coming for you, little one, when the kettle jumped into the fire. Towels flapped on the hooks, and the dog crept off, groaning, to the deepest part of the woods. In the hackles of dry brush, a thin laughter started up. Mother scolded the food warm and smooth in the pot, and called you to eat. But I spoke in the cold trees. New one, I have come for you. Child, hide and lie still. The sumac pushed sour red cones through the air. Copper burned in the raw wood. You saw me drag towards you. Oh, touch me, I murmured, and licked the soles of your feet. You dug your hands into my pale, melting fur. I stole you off, a huge thing in my bristling armor. Steam rolled from my wintry arms, each leaf shivered. From the bushes we passed, until they stood, naked, spread like the cleaned spines of fish. Then your warm hands hummed over and shoveled themselves full of the ice and the snow. I would darken and spill, all night running, until at least morning broke the cold earth, and I carried you home, a river shaking in the sun. The symbolism and metaphors represented in this poem are synonymous with hunger. Today, the Wendigo takes a new form. It's been popularized in movies, literature, and video games. As we see the pictures before you, we can see that the Wendigo has taken a more human form, very akin to the popular zombie. Off to the right, we see a more traditional illustration of the Wendigo, of a beast, starving and bony. Regardless of the interpretation of the Wendigo, many movies and other media have been fairly truthful to commenting on the starvation that Native Americans have endured. And I encourage further media, movies, and stories of the Wendigo to also comment on this very real problem, which is the mistreatment of the Native American people that have led to starvation and suffering. Thank you for listening to The Legend of the Wendigo.